Welcome to Module 1 of the Printpak tutorials. This module briefly explains the concepts behind Printpak. Let's first look at the way Printpak data is arranged. At the heart of the system is the print job. It might be at the estimating stage, not a real job at all yet, you might say, or a live job being worked on, or a job that's been finished and invoiced. In Printpak, they all count as jobs. Every job has to have a title, a customer, a category, and a notional value. It can also have descriptive text for putting on the estimate and the invoice. And then you can define the job in a bit more detail, maybe breaking it into one or more parts, such as a text section and its cover. We'll call these parts A and B, etc. The simplest jobs will only contain part A. In Printpak, you don't have to define exactly how to produce each part, but just what the finished item is to look like. Printpak can then advise you of the most cost-effective way to print the job. Of course, you can always override its suggestions. Now, to arrive at the cost, we'll use cost data from a variety of sources. And I'll emphasize the word cost rather than price because it's an important distinction. Say you normally charge, say, 100 for a certain task. That task might consist of 50 paid to an external supplier, 20 for your direct labour costs for the task. Now that makes 70. Now say you add 30% towards the general cost of running the company, which would be another 21. You could call it a contribution to fixed overhead. The balance of 9 would be markup. And in costing terms, the 50 is the direct external cost, the 20 is the direct internal cost, and 21 is the allowance for the absorption of indirect costs. Those three costs added together would be the gross cost, and the extra 9 is profit. It's important to treat the profit separately from the other costs, as it is an important measure of whether the job is worth doing. Ultimately, the job definition can produce estimates, invoices, calculation analyses, and depending on what edition of Printpak you're using, confirmation notes, delivery notes, and even box labels. And going on from there, for the small business and premium editions, confirming the job can also generate stock reservations and purchase orders. When the job's in production, you'll have the opportunity to start collecting data related to the actual cost of the job. So you can compare your estimated gross costs against the actual costs. And that way you can correct your notional gross costs with the benefit of hindsight. Now let's take a closer look at how a job is constructed. As I said before, the jobs can often be broken into two or more component parts, such as a job and its cover. And the usual reason for this is that two different paper stocks are used, or maybe one section's in colour while another's in black and white, or because different parts will be run on different presses. Of course, all the parts will come together for packing and delivery, and also before we add on the markup or any discount. Now it's the composition of those component parts I'd like to talk about. Each part consists of first the job details, which is a brief account of the physical characteristics of the part. Not how it's produced, but what it will look like, so that size, quantity, number of pages, number of colours, etc. Then comes the press. Usually a job has a selection of presses available to it, from which the one which is the most cost-effective for this particular component is chosen when it's calculated. Then comes the paper. All you have to do is select the paper name and the weight. Printpak will do the rest. And it will balance the costs of the different sizes of materials against the costs of the different presses and ways of using them. Now, if it's for litho, we have ink, where you can select from a list of possibilities, and plates. I'll be covering those in a bit more detail in a later module. And then origination and finishing tasks. That's the basic structure for calculating the job. Perhaps we'd also better mention here the works instructions, and the description of this part as well. And that's basically what makes up each component part. And now I'd like to talk a bit more about the origination and finishing tasks. Each of these contains the possible tasks in that category. Origination is everything to do with pre-press processing. That's tasks which are independent of the run length. And finishing contains all the tasks that happen after the job leaves the press. Actually, the pre-pressed trim, that's cutting the paper to the required running size, is perhaps confusingly counted as a finishing task because the size of the task depends on the length of the run. Now for each task there are 4 ways to specify it. First, you can pick lines from a list of prices and say how many you want of each, like a shopping list. Secondly, you can specify a simple calculation such as so much per 1,000. Thirdly, you can just enter the cost. And last, if you're using a paid-for version, you can record the details of a prospective purchase order, which can be activated when you confirm the job. You should note that these 4 options are mutually exclusive. For any one task, you can only use one way to specify it. If you use the price list option, that's where Printpak gets cleverer. You see, depending on what tasks are involved, it might be more cost-effective to use a different press or a different size of paper. So specify your tasks and then recalculate the job, and you might find that what was originally a 16-page section on one press is now less expensively printed as an 8-page section on another press, or vice versa. Printpak is intelligent enough to change quantities and even switch lines within a price list to accommodate different ways of working. And you can even tell it which tasks the press can do at no extra running costs, such as folding in line. Well, that's enough of the overview. In Module 2, we'll be discussing the main Printpak desktop.